It's going. Okay, so now we have our new pump here, which is the same size. One thing about your new pump and your old pump, you want to make sure it's the same size and the same electrical connection. Oftentimes they will change the electrical connection, and if they do inside the box, there's usually other hardware with it to change that electrical connection over to the correct connection. First thing we'll do is we'll take the old pump off. That's pretty easy. Remove the hose clamps. Simply slide it out. Slide it. Pull that out. That's your old pump. Alright. And next step. Personally, I do not like these spring clamps, and I'm so glad that they give you new clamps to go with it. So, and they'll also give you a new hose in the kit too, just in case that's bad. So, and you get a new seat. Alright, so first thing, since I don't like that clamp, I'm going to take that clamp off. Even though these spring clamps are pretty good, but considering this clamp was put on here back in 1991, it might be losing its spring tension. And since I've messed with it, I don't want to cause it to lose any tension, because that could create a problem later on down the road. Alright. Simply place your pump rubber in there, rubber seat in the hole. Make sure those line up. Plug it in. You never believe how many people I have come in the shop and they're like, "Oh, I did a fuel pump and it ain't working." I go through and pull the dang off thing back out and they didn't even plug it up. All right. After which you'll push that pump down into the seat. So I'm going to tighten this clamp here, and that basically tightens it to the it seals the connection there. You don't want to tighten these clamps too tight either, because they'll break, especially the small ones. The big ones are a little more sturdy, but the small ones will break. So you don't want to tighten it too tight. Now, the final step is to put your strainer on. Okay. You'll notice the old pump had a strainer on it. And what that strainer does is pretty much keep it from getting strained to lose fuel before it goes down. The strainer simply goes on that hole and you snap it into place. This particular strainer has a locking ring on it, so that it's got a double locking ring on it. You see that silver ring there? That's a locking ring to lock it onto the tab. And there's also another locking ring that goes right there. on that little piece there, which would be this little bitty star tab. They are extremely hard to put on. If you have a locking tab on there, you don't need to waste your time fighting with that other little one. Because by the time you put the rubber boot on and push it back in place, it's going to be held in place anyway. Okay, that's our completed fuel pump assembly. Now we'll simply drop this back in the tank, plug it back up, check for leaks. No leaks, then we'll prime it, start our car, and we'll be finished with this job. Now, when installing this fuel pump assembly, I always like to put the fuel pump float in first, and as well fold your strainer up. Still like that, it'll drop right in place. You won't touch the sides and you won't do any damage most of all. To seat it down in there, I might have to wiggle it a little bit. And we put our bolts back. I always suggest when putting stuff together, you start your bolts by hand. And I don't like to use air tools to tighten stuff down, little small bolts. I mean, it's one thing to use an air wrench to tighten a wheel lug down, but to tighten little small screws like this down, it could do some damage, and not to mention make it hard for you to get the job finished. You don't need to create an extra work when you don't have to. Kind of like the old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right. Now we have all our bolts started. We'll pick one and start there and work our way around, either clockwise, counterclockwise, do it in a star pattern. I really don't care, as long as you tighten these bolts down. Whatever you do after you go through, I at least like to go through and hit them at least twice. You know, not to overly tighten none, but just to make sure they're all pretty much tight. Now, this particular kit that I got was just a fuel pump, and it didn't come with a fuel tank gasket. Some kits you buy will come with the gasket. Some of the rubber O-ring type gaskets will swell up, so it's highly recommended that you change that gasket. This particular car has just a basic rubber flap gasket, which doesn't really